a mysterious monster suddenly appeared in a remote town. All those attacked would turn into zombie-like living dead. As the police investigated further, they discovered that this monster was actually a sealed god. One day ago, a red-haired girl was walking home alone. The empty road at this time made her feel a little scared. Just then, a thick fog suddenly rose around her. In a short moment, she could no longer see the road. The eerie atmosphere made the girl even more nervous. She quickly turned on her phone's flashlight, walking towards home based on her memory. The next second, the only light suddenly went out. Immediately after, the girl heard a whistling sound behind her, as if luring her over. The girl immediately turned around and prepared to flee. However, she suddenly let out a piercing scream, not knowing what she saw. Then she disappeared into the eerie fog. The red-haired girl didn't return all night. Her father was extremely anxious about this. He quickly found the town police officer, Max, and asked him to help find his daughter, Jean. According to the old father, he and his daughter had a bad relationship. Yesterday, she ran away from home again. The old father thought that she would return home as before. After her anger subsided, however, he hadn't seen his daughter for a whole day and night. That's why he came to the police station to report the case. Before this, the old father had tried to contact her by phone, but there was still no news. He believed that something must have happened to his daughter. Max immediately took on the task. Soon he and his partner Melissa arrived at the old man's residence, and carefully searched Jean's room. Looking at the surrounding environment, Max had some doubts, because Jean took almost nothing with her when she left. It didn't seem like a normal runaway. Just then, Max found a lot of cash stored in the stuffed animals on Jean's bed. In this way, he could completely determine that Jean wasn't running away from home. Otherwise, she would never leave without even her private money. Max classified the matter as a missing person kidnapping case. Then he devoted himself wholeheartedly to the case. Even eating seemed a little absent-minded. Max's daughter, Anvi, saw that something was wrong with her father, and asked what happened. From this, she learned about Jean's disappearance. Anvi was very familiar with this name, because the two were in the same school and in the same grade, but Anvi had never met her and didn't know much about Jean. However, Anvi said that she had a good friend, Leah, who was in the same class as Jean. Perhaps she could know some clues. So Max quickly took his daughter to find her good friend. When Leah heard that they were looking for Jean, she immediately said that she hadn't seen Jean since they separated last night. Then Leah carefully recounted what happened yesterday. According to her, Jean seemed to have had another fight with her family. She came to a local bar in a bad mood. Leah invited her to a party. Everyone played until the afternoon before separating, and then she hadn't seen Jean again. Hearing this news, Max was preparing to go to the bar that Leah mentioned. But before leaving, he asked Leah for a recent photo of Jean, to use as a reference for the search. When Leah took out the photo, Anvi suddenly froze. Max didn't notice his daughter's condition, and quickly took the photo to the bar. By questioning the security personnel, it was confirmed that what Leah said was true. Jean did indeed leave the bar yesterday afternoon. Then, according to the direction Jean left, Max had a rough range of investigation. The focus was on the road from the bar to the middle of town. After a careful search, Max and his partner Melissa did find important evidence in the corner. By observing the color on it, it could be determined that it was the lipstick color that Jean used. In this way, Max was even more certain that the girl had been kidnapped. Then they surveyed the surrounding traces. Melissa found a rut on the road. It looked like a motorcycle track, possibly a clue left by the kidnappers. The two quickly returned to the police station to investigate the clues. On the other side, Anvi had been restless ever since she saw Jean's photo. She couldn't quite believe it. This was just too coincidental. Just this morning, when Jean went to the nursing home to visit her grandmother with Alzheimer's, the grandmother, as if stimulated by something, frantically shouted to rescue the red-haired girl. At the time, Anvi thought that her grandmother had suddenly had an episode, and didn't take it to heart. But she didn't expect that the missing Jean was actually the red-haired girl. If that were the case, then how did the grandmother, who was always in the nursing home, know about this news? Anvi was full of doubts, and just wanted to find her grandmother to ask her clearly. She didn't even hear Leah calling her. When Leah stopped her, Anvi then learned that Leah had invited her to a party outside of town tonight. Anvi perfunctorily agreed. Then she immediately rushed back to the nursing home to ask her grandmother. However, the development of the matter once again exceeded Anvi's expectations. Because of Alzheimer's, the grandmother had already forgotten what happened in the morning. No matter how Anvi described it, the old woman always had a blank expression. Seeing this situation, Anvi couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Just as she was about to leave and start investigating from other places, the matter took another turn. The grandmother grabbed Anvi and told her that she must find the red-haired girl. Anvi thought that the other party had remembered something and quickly asked, but she didn't expect the grandmother to convulse and faint. Max received a notification and came to check. Anvi felt very guilty. If she hadn't kept asking her grandmother, perhaps the later events wouldn't have happened. Anvi's words instantly aroused Max's interest. From this, he learned the whole story, but Max, as a staunch materialist, didn't believe in ghosts and gods at all. He only thought that his daughter was hallucinating due to too much academic pressure. Then he returned to the police station again to investigate Jean's disappearance. At this time, his colleagues had found the surveillance footage of the bar. Max and the others observed carefully. They found that after Jean left, a man on a motorcycle chased after her. Max believed that it was very likely that this person left the motorcycle tracks at the scene. Just then, an old police officer next to him said that he recognized this motorcycle. It belonged to a man named Kevin. He had been imprisoned several times before for robbery. Max immediately identified Kevin as the kidnapper. Then he led people to Kevin's residence. Max saw the modified motorcycle in the yard. Just then, Kevin walked out of the house. Seeing Max and the others' police uniforms, this guy turned around and ran away without any hesitation. He got into the nearby wheat field, trying to shake off the police, but Max and the others were prepared. It didn't take long to capture the fleeing Kevin. Immediately after, the old police officer and others found a large number of stolen goods in Kevin's backyard, and among them saw Jean's wallet and ID card. Combined with Kevin's previous escape behavior, Max had already imagined a complete kidnapping and robbery case. He immediately took Kevin back to the police station and forced him to ask where he had hidden Jean. Faced with Max's constant coercion, Kevin always looked blank and said that he didn't know Jean at all. He accidentally picked up the wallet when he passed by. As for the previous escape behavior, it was even easier to explain. He thought that the bad things he had done in the past had been discovered by the police. Seeing that Kevin's expression didn't seem to be acting, Max hesitated a little for a moment. Perhaps the other party really didn't know. So what took Jean away? He had no idea that the killer was now by his daughter Anvi's side. On the other side, Anvi finished the party with several classmates and was about to go home. Just then, a strange fog suddenly rose around them, and the headlights flickered for a moment and then went out. Immediately after, they heard a whistling sound coming from the forest not far away. One of the bolder companions immediately shouted in the direction of the sound, inviting the other party to join them. But when the few people saw the source of the sound clearly, they were immediately frightened and panicked. The 4 people rushed into the water tower and locked the latch, immediately fleeing to the top of the water tower. However, this was of no use. The thick fog quickly filled the water tower. The few people were horrified to find that the water tower door had been opened at some point. They realized that the monster was in this thick fog, and they quickly fled again. However, one of the boys named Chris seemed to be tripped by something and fell to the ground. The few people were just about to go forward to help Chris up. The other party was dragged into the thick fog by a mysterious force. Then there was no sound anymore. The remaining 3 people were stunned in place by this weirdness. Completely at a loss as to what to do. In just a moment, the monster rushed out of the thick fog at such a close distance. The 3 people had almost no hope of escape. But just then, in a panic, Anvi suddenly burst out with a dazzling white light. That monster seemed to be very afraid of this light. After the white light shone, the monster, along with the surrounding fog, all disappeared. They didn't dare to delay and quickly returned to the town to tell the adults about this matter. Max led the team to search near the water tower. It didn't take long to find the boy Chris, who had been dragged into the thick fog. At this time, the other party was still breathing. Besides this, Max and the others also found an exquisite wood carving at the location where Chris was found. It was a humanoid monster with horns. Max determined that this was a mark left by the murderer, just like Batman's Batarang. His daughter Anvi wanted to make her father understand that the murderer wasn't a human but a terrifying monster. But Max rejected it again, and he considered taking his daughter to see a psychologist sometime. After inspecting the crime scene, Max immediately rushed to the hospital to inquire about Chris's condition. The doctor told Max in an incredible tone, although Chris wasn't in life-threatening danger, now he doesn't seem to be considered human at all. Anvi and others decided to see with their own eyes what had happened to Chris, but they were shocked. The traces of rot on Chris's face might still be explained by some diseases, but the pupils completely occupied by white were unheard of. The current Chris was more like the zombies in those movies. This matter quickly spread throughout the town. Many media outlets surrounded the mayor, asking him to give a reasonable explanation for Jean's disappearance and Chris's condition. The mayor could only tell the media that he would do his best to investigate, and promised that there would be results within 48 hours, which put more pressure on Max, who was in charge. He immediately ordered his men to do their best to investigate Jean's disappearance. In the overwhelming investigation by many police officers, new discoveries were soon made. A person living near the scene of the crime revealed to the police that they had seen Jean's figure on the night of the incident, and pointed out that the girl went into the woods alone. Hearing this news, Max quickly investigated along the route the person had mentioned. They actually found some clues in the dense forest. It was a lost women's leather shoe. Melissa confirmed it was Jean's shoe, which was worn when she vanished, by analyzing the footprint size and pattern. With this discovery, the scope of the investigation was narrowed again. Max quickly gathered a large number of volunteers. Using the shoe as the center, they scattered to find Jean's whereabouts. For the next several hours, people conducted a carpet search of the forest, but to Max's surprise, no clues were found. This is clearly unreasonable. However, that was the reality, and Max could only accept it helplessly. Just as he was thinking about where to look next, he happened to see a bald eagle flying in the sky. At this moment, Max suddenly had an idea. Bald eagles eat carrion, and Jean had been missing for 3 days, and now it was likely that she was dead. Perhaps they could use the habits of bald eagles to find Jean's body. So Max led people to the location where the bald eagle was hovering. There was an unknown deep well here. Police dogs were constantly around. Max indeed found the long-missing Jean inside, so he quickly arranged a salvage plan. Because the wellhead was relatively narrow, Max decided to use ropes to go deep into it, and then bring Jean's body out. Before long, Jean was brought out of the dry well. The old father burst into tears when he saw his daughter in such a tragic state. Just then, Jean, who had been breathless, suddenly opened her eyes, but also with pale white pupils. Seeing that Jean hadn't died, the police sent her to the hospital. After the examination, the doctor told Max, this girl's symptoms were exactly the same as Chris's before. At this time, she can no longer be considered human. Moreover, the girl didn't eat any food while trapped in the dry well, but didn't show any signs of hypothermia. Obviously it was abnormal. Although the doctor didn't say it explicitly, the meaning was very clear. There is supernatural power in this. Max, a staunch materialist, was shaken at this time. After returning to the police station, he learned from his partner Melissa, when searching through Jean's belongings, the exquisite and strange wood carving was found again in her pocket. In this way, it could be determined that the cases of Jean and Chris were both committed by one person. After a brief thought, Max had an idea. He planned to start with the wood carvings, to unravel all the mysteries. After Max's observation, these wood carvings were very delicate, definitely not a casually made product, and these custom products were often very limited. Maybe we could find the murderer by investigating all the woodcarvers in the nearby area. Max and Melissa used the police database to screen out the woodcarvers in the nearby area. The two went to these people's workshops to investigate. At the place of a man named Claude, they really found something. There were still many unfinished, but already shaped strange wood carvings on this person's table. Obviously, this guy was the originator of those wood carvings. In addition, there were many finished sketches of wood carvings that could be used as a reference for verification. Just then, Claude returned to the workshop. Max and the two decisively drew their guns and controlled Claude. Then they forced him to ask why he made these wood carvings. From this, it was learned the wood carvings were actually commissioned by a mysterious customer. Even the drawings were sent to him by the other party. According to Claude, the thing he carved was called a Bernios, the legendary god who led the souls to the underworld. Although Claude was a little afraid of this kind of thing, the other party gave too much money. The man ordered 4 wood carvings, and paid $500 for each. He had already handed over 2 to the other party before. The remaining 2 will be placed in the designated location tomorrow, according to the other party's requirements. After listening to Claude's story, Max had an idea. He was going to wait at the transaction location. So the next day, Max and the two ambushed near the transaction location early in the morning, but unfortunately, it suddenly rained heavily today, so when the customer appeared, he was wearing a heavy raincoat. It was impossible to see the real face at all. Seeing this situation, Max decisively rushed out of the car, preparing to control the mysterious man. The other party seemed to be prepared the moment he saw Max. Quickly fled into the house near the transaction location. Max arranged for his partner Melissa to guard outside, to prevent the guy from taking the opportunity to escape. He tried to capture the mysterious man. Although Melissa was a little worried, she still did as she was instructed. However, an accident happened. Melissa waited outside for a long time, but never received Max's signal. She couldn't help but feel a little anxious. Just then, a gunshot suddenly came from the house. Melissa couldn't hold back any longer and rushed in. But she didn't find the mysterious man. She only saw Max lying painfully on the ground. His clothes were already soaked with blood. Melissa quickly sent him to the hospital. Fortunately, the bullet didn't hit Max's vital point, but Max was very remorseful after waking up for not catching the mysterious man. On the other side, his daughter Anvi also joined the investigation after experiencing Chris's matter. She pulled her friend Leah and classmate Nathan from the party that day to investigate along the clue of Anvi's grandmother. Sure enough, there was a different discovery. After waking up, the old man suddenly drew a mysterious symbol on the paper. Anvi and the three thought of the various abnormalities of their grandmother before, guessing that this might be the key to saving Chris. So they quickly went to the town library to use the information here to determine what the symbol above meant. To the surprise of the three, this turned out to be an ancient script, inherited from a mysterious civilization thousands of years ago. The meaning of that mysterious symbol was ash tree. The three were full of doubts about this. They returned to the nursing home again, trying to get more clues from the old man. Just then, there was a sudden knock on the door outside the nursing home ward. Nathan opened the door and saw that it was John, an old man from the nursing home, who had a very good relationship with Anvi's grandmother. John came to find Anvi's grandmother to play chess, to relieve boredom, but just then, the three members of the team noticed that there was also that mysterious symbol on the chessboard that John brought. The three became interested immediately, asking John where this chessboard came from. The other party didn't hide it and told the three that this was his family's heirloom chessboard. The fathers said it had been passed down for at least 1,000 years. Of course, John didn't believe this statement, only thought they were bragging, but Anvi and the others believed that what the other party said was true. Then Anvi and the others asked if the symbol had any special meaning. Speaking of this, John suddenly paused. Then he told them that this symbol was their family crest. Such a coincidence was no ordinary thing. Just then, the lights in the nursing home suddenly started flickering, very similar to when the monster appeared before. Leah guessed that the monster was here again, and the target was likely to be old John. The three immediately took out their mobile phones to call the police, but found that the phone wasn't working. Even the nursing home's landline phone couldn't be used normally. Seeing that the situation wasn't good, everyone immediately pushed Grandma to find a place to hide. Although old John didn't know what was going on, he still left with the others. But as soon as they left the room, they were surrounded by a large cloud of fog in the corridor. Immediately after, that terrifying monster quietly emerged from the fog. Old John had not experienced the water tower incident, and didn't even know about Jean's matter, only thought that the other party was deliberately mystifying, and immediately rushed up to teach the other party a lesson. But he couldn't even get close. They quickly fled in another direction, and came all the way to the nursing home's kitchen. Everyone closed the back kitchen door tightly, and blocked the position behind the door with a dining car, trying to stop the monster from breaking in. In addition to this, they also went into the kitchen warehouse, preparing to use this second line of defense to stop the monster. But old John took the initiative to give up entering the warehouse, and locked the door from the outside. Anvi and the others were very worried, but there was nothing they could do. Obviously, old John seemed to realize that he was the monster's target, preparing to sacrifice himself to win a chance of survival for Anvi and others. Just then, the kitchen door was suddenly forced open. The monster walked into the space step by step, heading straight for old John. Anvi and the others saw through the window that monster strangled old John by the neck, then opened its bloody mouth and sucked something from old John. In just a few seconds, old John fell into a coma. Anvi and others forcibly opened the locked warehouse door. Looking at this monster, and recalling what happened at the water tower before, she immediately made the same gesture, trying to burst out that ray of light again to drive away the monster. But this time no miracle happened. The monster stared at the three for a moment, preparing to step forward and eat the three together. Just then, the grandmother who had been sitting in the wheelchair suddenly stood up, and walked towards the monster with agile steps. It was simply a medical miracle. This old man's hands contained a shining light. With a wave of his hand, he burst out a powerful energy shock. The monster had no power to fight back. In the end, the monster and the fog all disappeared, and the old man once again became in a state where he could only move by wheelchair. Then the three quickly fled from here. Just then, Nathan accidentally noticed that there was a strange wood carving on the ground next to old John, but he didn't publicize it. Not long after Max learned about the nursing home incident, and quickly led a team to deal with it. To his surprise, the mayor also came here. Max didn't have so much thought to explore this matter. He quickly retrieved the nursing home surveillance to try to find the figure of the murderer. Perhaps due to the influence of the monster's ability, the nursing home inexplicably lost 17 minutes of surveillance footage. The entire case process wasn't recorded in the slightest. Only saw John lying in the back kitchen. Moreover, what made Max a little puzzled was that this crime was very similar to the previous method, but he didn't find that familiar wood carving at the scene. He suspected it was a copycat crime. Therefore, Max found Nathan and others at the scene to inquire about the case, but learned that there were wood carvings at the scene. He quickly took the photo to Nathan for identification. The other party was very sure that it was this wood carving. Criminal evidence would never suddenly disappear. Someone must be playing tricks behind the scenes. Max quickly returned to the nursing home again, and continued to check the surveillance of the crime scene. This time there was an unexpected discovery. According to the surveillance footage, shortly after Nathan and others left, a man suddenly came to the scene. Secretly took the wood carving in the corner. Although the surveillance lake was relatively blurry, Max still recognized that the other party was the mayor. Things became more complicated and troublesome, because to arrest the mayor, there must be sufficient reasons, and there must be ironclad evidence, to make the other party completely surrender. Max thought for a long time, and decided to use a little evil trick. Therefore, that afternoon, Max invited the mayor to the coffee shop, in the name of reporting on his work. Then he revealed to the other party several pieces of evidence that he had fabricated, claiming that the DNA of the suspect, who took the wood carving, was found at the scene, and there would be results in a dozen hours. After listening to Max's report, although the mayor said it was very good, his face was very serious. Sure enough, this guy booked a flight to go abroad after leaving. Seeing that the other party had been fooled, Max immediately led a team to seal up the mayor's residence. But the other party was already gone. Max and others searched the mayor's residence inside and out, and found a mysterious warehouse lease contract. Max immediately led a team to the warehouse address on the contract. Sure enough, the evidence of the mayor's crime was found here. The warehouse not only detailed each crime scene, and there were photos of the victims, and a lot of mysterious symbols that were temporarily unknown. Just as Max thought the case was about to come to light, but he suddenly noticed that there was a photo of his daughter in a drawer. He realized that the other party might not have fled the town, but went to attack his daughter. At this time, Anvi didn't know that she was being targeted. After the nursing home attack, she became more and more convinced that the mysterious symbol had an unusual meaning. So she and her friends found the town's history teacher. The other party told them a lot about the history of the town. The history teacher mentioned by chance that many years ago, a mysterious relic from thousands of years ago was discovered in the town. It was a stone tablet carved with a Bernios, the guide to the underworld. The history teacher became more and more excited, and immediately introduced the history of the stele. Anvi and the others learned from this that the thing was erected there when the town was first established. Legend had it that there was a gate to the underworld in the town, and that stele was the seal of the gate. The history teacher also said that he would lead them to the stele to see it with their own eyes. In this way, the group of 4 came to a small mountain nearby. They saw the stele in a hidden cave. However, the history teacher was horrified to find that the upper part of the stele had been destroyed. He was very heartbroken about this. Anvi and others had a completely different reaction. She speculated that perhaps the legend was true. It was because someone destroyed the stele that a Bernios appeared in the town. Just then, other companions noticed that the remaining part of the stele was engraved with that mysterious symbol. Anvi quickly asked the history teacher the meaning of the inscription. From this we know, according to legend, in addition to the stele, there were 4 wizard families in the town as the key to blocking the gate to the underworld, and these symbols were the marks of those wizard families. The one at the very front was considered the leader of the 4 families. After listening to the history teacher's story, Anvi quickly returned to her residence to consult relevant information. She already had a faint guess in her heart, but before Anvi could confirm this guess, she suddenly heard the sound of glass breaking at home. She walked out of the room, and was horrified to find a mysterious man breaking into her home. Although the other party hid his face in the shadows, Anvi quickly recognized that this person was the mayor of the town. To make matters worse, her father Max suddenly called. The mayor downstairs was instantly alarmed and discovered Anvi above, but before he could do anything, there was a burst of sirens outside. It turned out that Max was back. Seeing that the situation wasn't good, the mayor quickly fled outside. Max quickly chased after him, finally caught up with the mayor at a pool. The two broke out into a fierce battle. Because Max was injured, he wasn't the mayor's opponent at all, and was even disarmed by the enemy. Just as Max was about to be knocked down, his partner Melissa arrived in time. Seeing that the situation was over, the mayor committed suicide without hesitation, without giving them any chance to interrogate him. This made Max and others a little surprised. With the death of the mayor, everything seemed to be settled. Anvi came to her mother's grave to tell her about her experiences during this time. But just then, Anvi suddenly noticed that there was that mysterious symbol in the family tomb. She instantly guessed that she was the heir to the wizard family. She also thought of her mother suddenly being burned to death in a fire a few years ago. Feeling more and more wrong, Anvi quickly went to the place that was burned down. She really found something unusual. There seemed to be a spot that was completely untouched by the fire. At this moment, a ray of sunlight shone here. That trace actually showed the appearance of the monster before. Anvi then realized that the monster had started attacking the town years ago. At the same time, Max also had an unexpected discovery. The mayor's suicide was very strange. Therefore, they didn't give up the investigation. Sure enough, they found in a file that the mayor actually had another son, but he was fostered in an orphanage since he was a child. Max suspected that the mayor might just be covering for his son, so they came to the location of that orphanage. At this time, this place has been converted into a monastery. Therefore, it was the nuns who received Max. But fortunately, the original files weren't discarded, so Max still found information about the mayor's son in the archives. However, Max was shocked again when he saw the other party's identity. That person was called Fred, and was now a nursing home worker. He realized that his mother was in danger, but it was already too late. His daughter Anvi went to the nursing home to visit her grandmother. She was tricked by Fred into eating food with sleeping pills, and then fell into a coma. When she woke up again, she had been taken to a mysterious church. Fred was beside her, staring at Anvi. Fred stopped pretending and told his true purpose. This church was the entrance to the underworld. The stone bricks not far away were the key to opening the gate. Now Fred had collected the bloodline imprints of the 3 wizard families. As long as Anvi, the descendant of the leader, took the initiative to put her hands on the stone bricks, she could easily open the gate to the underworld. At that time, everyone would be able to see their loved ones separated by yin and yang, and there would be no more pain of separation. Of course, this was not without cost. At that time, the people of the entire town would be transformed into living dead like Chris. But he didn't tell Anvi about it. Hearing that she could see her missing relatives, Anvi couldn't help but be moved. On the other side, Max learned that his daughter was kidnapped by Fred, and his heart was anxious. He could only find Leah and others to ask them if they had any clues. Nathan and the others honestly explained the 4 wizard families. Max had also heard of this legend, but he had always scoffed at it. Now that his daughter was kidnapped because of this, he could only investigate according to this clue. Through investigating related rumors, Max learned that a certain church was considered the entrance to the gate of the underworld. He quickly set off with his partner Melissa, but the two walked halfway, and suddenly heard strange noises behind the car. On closer inspection, it turned out that Nathan and the two had secretly followed. Max didn't want to take the children on an adventure, so he locked them in the car with handcuffs. He and Melissa walked to the church, but they were still one step late. Under Fred's bewitchment, Anvi took the initiative to open the gate to the underworld. In an instant, the surrounding environment changed rapidly. A mysterious man in black appeared in front of Anvi. The other party didn't make any sound, but just handed the lantern in his hand to Anvi. Although the man didn't say anything, Anvi understood what he meant. Before long, the environment around Anvi changed again. She actually came to the outside of the house, where her mother was burned to death. She finally saw her mother Catherine, whom she had been thinking about day and night. Catherine was very sad about her daughter's appearance. She thought her daughter was also dead. After the two communicated, they learned that Anvi actually helped Fred open the gate to the underworld, which made Catherine a little dissatisfied, because Fred killed her in the first place. From this, Anvi finally learned the truth of what happened. A few years ago, Fred released a Bernios and brought him to Catherine, hoping that the other party could help lift the seal, but she was decisively rejected. Fred then manipulated the monster, trying to steal Catherine's power. However, a fire broke out during the fight between the two sides. Catherine failed to escape the fire, and eventually died. Unfortunately, learning the truth about her mother's death, Anvi was full of hatred for Fred. Just then, Max and others happened to arrive at the church. Looking at his daughter who was lying on the ground in a coma, Max quickly performed CPR on her. At this moment, an accident happened again. Melissa immediately shot at the monster, but it had no effect. A Bernios knocked Melissa unconscious, and then controlled Max. It seemed ready to devour him as well. At this critical moment, the bells at the top of the church suddenly rang. It turned out that Nathan and Leah had appeared. The two didn't know how they escaped from the car, and came to the church. Anvi, who was in the underworld, seemed to be summoned after hearing the bell. She had to say goodbye to her mother reluctantly, and leave the underworld following the sound of the bell. After Anvi woke up, she saw the monster preparing to kill her father. She suddenly burst out with huge magic power, instantly sending the monster back to the underworld. And Fred was also permanently trapped in the underworld. The father and daughter were finally reunited. The town also returned to peace again. The film ends here. This film was released in May of this year. It's based on local myths and legends, but the plot performance can only be said to be mediocre. As a low-budget TV series, it's already above the passing line. If you like my channel, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to it.